time I think I'm getting to the end of the special rules and everything, and I am, I guess, but I mean, as opposed to the special rules that continue throughout the whole game. But yeah, now we've got to figure out the connectivity thing. Now, I don't have connectivity up here, but I do have it running from here up to here and down, and I set that up correctly, it seems. That's important because now we're triggered to 24.27. Syracuse, Augusta, and Cantina. None of them have been taken. So the boundary will stay on the 45XX hex row, and the U.S. restrictions apply for this turn and 2 more turns. I'm going to mark that with this U.S. So this turn and 2 more turns, they will end here. And then I'm allowed to reposition this however I like. It's something of a blow. I would like to be able to cover the U.S. In that direction, but honestly, it looks like I got plenty to do with the U.S. in other directions as well. It's not like there's an easy road path to get me, onto that east coastal area. There's some secondary roads and stuff, which might be sufficient, but for the most part, I think I want to own the primary roads too. And you can see these, I don't know. Okay. And that's it. I got clear weather again. I'm going to keep going through the Allied support phase and figure out their other things. Again, I may not be doing them in order. Number of airfields, we have 8 of them. That's actually a kind of neat number. It lets us do emergency bombing, so we get 2 extra air points. If we had 9, we'd only have 2 air points, and they'd all be roll air points. I forgot to use my air point last time. I hope I remember this time. It certainly could have helped in some of the battles. Got some reinforcements. They're all airborne units. I could do some paradropping. I can't figure out that I want to declare any of it. I probably only want to do assaults because the air reinforcement table, it's just a nasty thing. I mean, it can cause me losses, whereas I can just land at a port and move forward. I'm not deep enough in Sicily that that these units with their 4 movement points are really hindered. And honestly, even if I am deep enough, probably the highways are a better way to get my troops to the field. So I doubt I'm going to be doing too many paradrops. But I may do some airborne assaults. And let's see, what else did we take care of? We moved another depot. So the Brits got 2 support points. The Americans got 3. Next turn, they're going to start getting 4 a turn. And they're kind of stuck at that forever until maybe I get Palermo or something, which of course has an automatic will be mined. And I guess other than that, I am going to do my movement in combat. It's had a lot of the reinforcements, a lot of the British ones, all except their special boat service or whatever, SAS. Special amphibious service, I don't know what it is, special air service probably, which is not an airborne unit at all, so I'm not sure if I've got it right. They might have unit designations in here. I don't know these things. I know the SAS sounds familiar to me. Were optional reinforcements, and I chose to take none of them. It's not a permanent none. I pushed them till next turn. I can grab them if I need them. Right now, I did not have a good use for doing an airdrop. Although I ought to think, because I might be able to drop them near something really valuable, and then grab something like this that's out of supply. So let me consider whether I've just screwed up the game completely. I don't think I'm allowed to. At least 2 hexes from all friendly units and no more than 2 from the nearest enemy unit. Which means I could jump quite close to something like this. Of course, I can't because of the barrier for the Brits, but the US could conceivably do that again, except they have this barrier. So not yet, but I got to be careful about like Axis units being near valuable locations. That's the real danger. If the valuable location is completely empty and there's nothing around it, that's great, but I can't leave something kind of open and exposed. Anyway, the Brits staying steady here, but moving into an attack here and here. And then the Canadians trying to make their way up to chase those Italians away. On the US side, I'm limited by this barrier, sort of. These guys had already crossed the barrier due to an advance, so I'm able to launch a big attack on that flank. And if I can get more units across, that's just great. Yeah. If I cross this line, the boundary between the 8th Army and the US, then I have to run home. But that's not the case with the other more restrictive line, which is still in place until this comes out, because the Brits are held up, and so the Americans are like, well, we better not advance too far. But if they fight Axis units that are near the line, the Axis retreat can be pursued across the line, and then you're free to work, which is what's happening here. The units outside that hadn't crossed the line can't. So it's kind of a big deal. These guys who came across, they weren't capable of dealing with this, but in conjunction with other units, I think they're going to be able to handle that. And of course, I don't get any naval gunfire because I'm not fighting near the coast with the U.S. I have 5 points, but I can't use them. All right, let's launch those attacks and see what happens. I ran into a serious nasty here, Fallschirmer Division unit or battalion there, and I just got pounded back. But over here, you can see I got a breakthrough actually, using one of the air points, and I did use an air point here. Actually, I tried to use the real air point, which only succeeds on a 1 or a 2 because of the airfield chart, and it did not succeed. So, but I did still get on a very good chart and got a breakthrough, so I didn't have to pay the support cost for it. And now you can see these Italians are looking pretty unhappy. What looked like a strong line doesn't look so strong no more. And over here we succeeded, got another whole division across the line, and the Germans may not want to stick around where they are. They took some losses. These are my losses so far collected up. Any units that I choose not to bring in or whatever, if I want to bag them, I can. The German optional or the Axis optionals that I'm not getting an option on went in the bag, but these are the ones I'll get an option on. I gotta pay victory points for these suckers. And then more victory points if I lose them. So, I don't know, maybe I don't want them. However, on the other hand, maybe I don't want to lose Sicily very quickly, you know. It looks to me like this is a major breach that's going to change the nature of things very quickly, because the Brits are going to start getting support points if they get Syracuse. It might take them a couple turns to get it, and then over here there's a fair number of units over the line, and they can do some damage and threaten this position and force withdrawals, or they could go skidding off down towards Palermo. So I don't know yet. But right now, I'm set on the Axis player turn, and I'm going to take a little break. It doesn't take that much effort to do the Axis turns, but the Allied turns are big enough that I feel like I need more. Screwed up and brought my German reinforcements in early. Okay, so let's look at everything else first, but moving down and creating quite a barrier here against the U.S. I can't withdraw from here easily. There's this artillery unit, and it does not move quickly. And as long as the U.S. is pressing against the Italian units, it's very hard to get it out of there. I can't use strategic movement to do so. Other forces, well, I got somebody actually in Palermo because he couldn't, it's his fastest way down. Over here, I've created kind of a thin trace of the line, trying to protect against the Brits just pounding through. I don't think they can just bypass these Italian units easily. However, here I pulled some of my Italians and some of my Germans, including that big Fallschirmer division or brigade, to try to attack a fairly decent British unit. That's the questionable thing. Would I be better off having having more of a speed bumper here and just say, you know, I'm out of supply and everything, but they'll have to reduce it more, or do I want to save these units? And I'm not sure what the answer is. I went with this because blood and guts. And not too surprising, that attack was not successful. However, I took the losses on the stuff that I'm leaving behind. Mainly, I lost a couple support points to make the attack. I don't know. You know, obviously I shouldn't have done it given what's happening. This guy is now possibly going to be stranded as well as these. But what happens if I break it, the line here, I end up with sort of a connection between these and a much, much more difficult situation for the Allies to react to. As it is, it's a slightly worse situation. I thought it was worth the chance. I think that's the end of the 17th of July. I don't know, did I tell you I tried to cheat and bring in this German brigade here, and then I was like, oh, I can bring a whole division in. Not yet, out of the optionals. Yeah, it's because I moved the Brits to the end of the line and thought, oh, those are the ones I have available. All right. Boy, does it take a long time to figure out your turn in this. It's almost like an OCS game in terms of the amount of, you know, the amount of special stuff going on, but also the amount of figuring that goes into launching an attack. I'm doing kind of a quick shot here to hit. It may even be slower. Launching an attack on the Italians here, just trying to push a little further. Part of the problem is I got lots of support points for the U.S. I don't have a lot I can do with them. I got a few units that are outside the boundary and a few enemies that are inside the boundary that I can pick on. But I also don't have a lot of strength to bring to bear anywhere, so I don't even know about the assurance of these attacks, although I have some artillery in play. There's defensive artillery, too, for both of them. Over here, I got the Canadians trying to just gain some flanking over here. The 51st Division had to shift over into place. It's kind of in a nice location where it can threaten in either direction, but it wasn't able to land a blow this time. All my effort is really on Syracuse. And that's 3 attacks. I only have 5 support points. Oh, unless I get a breakthrough or something, I'm going to be cutting, you know, I'm eating up more than I'm using, actually. I'm only getting 2, so I don't know how I have that many. I guess some breakthrough. I got a couple of breakthroughs last time, so yeah. Okay, so that's the Allied attacks. The Brits did not take Syracuse. It's down to 1 unit now, but these guys took it, got a big breakthrough, and were able to push up against the German line. And there's some Italians in there too, and are causing, you know, some problems where this unit might get lost. We knew it was at risk. It didn't have another way out, really. Over here, we were basically successful everywhere. The Brits pushed forward. U.S. managed to shove forward here. We got a big breakthrough here. It was so intense that the top of that counter fell off, and I had to add some glue to it. That'll put us over on the Axis side. And, you know, like with most of the Victory in the West series, I got to do stuff and fall back. It's not really a game where there's a lot of capability to put in big counterattacks. But the terrain here is a lot more interesting than in the other games. And more complicated. That makes my allied turn's really long because I spend so much effort trying to figure out how can I get this attack, can I move where I want to. In general, the Axis, it's pretty obvious whether they can withdraw or not, and how, and they just try to find some good terrain. But the complexity of the attack in this terrain, wow, it really is something of a challenge. And that's the end of the 19th of July. So, what happened? This guy slipped into a town where he didn't have to attack for safety. These guys just sitting there, of course. Italian line pulling back just a little bit. And Germans too here. I brought in a reinforcement unit and another whole variable division. That's going to cost me 15 points with the Axis, but I'm like, geez, I don't see holding. This is just too weak. There's not enough there. If I want to not pull my Goering division back, and I kind of don't want to because they're linked up nicely with the Italians here who could not move back further. Again, that artillery, once I get that on the road, then I can start pulling back a little bit. And that's about the time when I kind of have to. Otherwise, holding here. Over here, I could hold this space, but I couldn't be in these spaces, so I pulled back a little bit there too. And, just trying to maintain as much territory as I can. This isn't a game where, it's like, oh, I just want to take so many territory spaces. But I got to get to Messina, and the longer that I can delay that, the better it is. Unfortunately, unlike the others, it ain't that simple. There's all kind of complexity in the victory point system here. The others had kind of just pure territorial victory conditions. This does not. It matters what you lose, what you're able to withdraw, all kind of stuff like that. And that's an important facet to the game. I'm not sure why the Allies would want to withdraw any units, but they got the capacity. I guess if you're in a port and there's major Axis like counterattack happening in that area, and you're like, oh, I can get out of here before things go to hell. But so far, I really don't see it being likely. It's just possible. All right. Okay, this is one of the big bookkeeping turns. Went through first. The weather is still good. The airfields, I think, are the same, so I didn't bother recounting them. They're kind of a pain to count, and you got to do it every turn, so I'm hoping my number is right. Basically, there's only one I'm involved in here, and I haven't taken it yet. Well, then there's these. So once, and I may have taken one of these, but they're in an enemy zone, so I don't know what the hell to talk about them. So anyway, I'm leaving it at the same point where I've got 1 air point plus 2 emergency bombing. I thought there was a cost to emergency bombing, though, in victory points. So I better look that up because I've spent a couple of turns doing it. This is one of the Italian surrender or variable reinforcements, but that only happens once as per the rules. So the Italian surrender, there's no way, nothing's changed. I looked everywhere, we've got the same 2 points. Really, I've got to get it out to 11 to 15 to count. Now, I'm wondering, because there's a lot of spaces along the coast that are tactical points up in the north, and like big things here as you get close to Messina. I'm wondering if maybe there aren't enough of the tactical points allocated in the south where the landing zones are because of the historical game, and if you end up playing the variable game, you end up screwing with that. But I can't imagine they take this rule out, so I'm a little disturbed that there aren't any to the south, except for the 2 in the U.S., the 2 ports in the U.S. landing zone. But I mean, maybe it's okay. It's not like there are any over here either. It may just be that this is the unimportant part of the island in terms of, making a judgment of how likely are we to hold the island. I grab my support points, and I guess I'm ready to roll. The cost for emergency bombing is additional support points for the Axis. Now, I've been rolling for support for the Axis and not really paying attention. It's supposed to go to 8 per turn, which is the maximum they can possibly get. I don't know what I'm going to give them. I think I'm going to just give them 8 extra for the previous turns. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. And say that's good. They're not low on support points, but their support points are important because as they bring in replacement points and stuff, they cost those, plus where they counterattack, of course. But I'm not really thinking kind of under the gun in terms of time. But those Axis support points are an indication of the amount of traffic that I can get through to Sicily. So what's happening with the emergency bombing is I'm no longer interdicting as much, and instead I'm using those interdiction planes to bomb tactically. That's going to go out of play this turn. I actually found I had screwed up and moved my Canadians across the line. They should have captured this. They might have already captured it. I think they did, and I think I'm not going to give emergency bombing this turn. I think I'm going to say it wasn't eligible because they should not have been there. So there's only 2 air points available, and they're only on a die roll. And the Brits are still being super active here. I'm hitting here, here, and then the 2 isolated units that I need to get cleared out before. I'm just trying to get some forward motion even while I set up for the port there. For the US, not so much. I'm touching against the Italians here and here. Ran away from the Germans there, try to get this big highway cleared out. It's going to be tough because there's so much there's so many reinforcements there. This would be the weaker place to hit, but it can't expose these, and I'd have to leave a unit there and shift around. It looked like this would be easier to kill something, and in a sense that's maybe the best I can do. We're on turn 6, so I no longer have my naval fire. A great turn for the Allies. I took the 2 locations here, and those were rather trivial. I've added a tactical points marker to the game so that I can just track them in real time. They're just too much of a pain to count up. Over here, though, we got flung back by the forces. This is the Fallschirmer Division. Man, that thing's tough. And it really hurt. What is this? The 51st British Division, which ended up having a really heavy unit. Well, that heavy unit isn't so heavy no more. Same thing over here. The U.S. got flung back by some crappy little Italian Liv Brigade Division. And it damaged my best unit. And the thing is, if I spend the replacement points on those good units, I'm going to get a lower morale chit. It probably won't be any stronger. It'll have an extra step, but it'll probably not be any better at combat. So you don't really want to water down your good units even though they're damaged. Here, though, we did crack through and grabbed ourselves an airfield, and I don't know if that's a port. It's certainly a tactical location. Anyway, you can see the tactical points have gone way up, mainly because of these 2 locations. The port was not demolished, so we'll be getting lots of support points for the Brits from now on. And one thing it's not going to do, it doesn't affect this. Had I set the line up after I had gotten these, it would have been quicker, but it wasn't at all obvious I was going to be able to take those particularly quickly, and I did not. So I'm very happy that I set the line up when I did, because it started the timer. If things had gone worse than they did, I'd have a longer delay on when I could start shifting the line and not have my Canadians wander over it. They're Canadians, so, they're almost Americans, right? They tended to work a little bit better, at least in other campaigns, with the U.S. troops than the Brits did. A little bit less toes being stepped on. which I find kind of strange because you'd think the layering, the Canadians would be under the British command, and then beyond that, it would be even harder. You know, the fact that you had to go through an extra layer of bureaucracy for the Canadian side of things, you'd think it would be even harder. But I think they worked things so it was okay to put them under U.S. command at other points. That's going to put me over on the German side of the turn. Okay, and for the Axis side of the turn, not a lot. Just a little bit of cleaning up of the lines. Some extra German units down here in the line. You know, we know the assault's going to come. The U.S. is getting freed, not... Yeah, shit. When did this happen? I think this is the trigger for I can come out. And I think that's how I had it set. So the U.S. is going to be able to come out. The Brits are going to be getting more support points, not this turn, but next turn. We got some more reinforcements coming. And honestly, you know, this is where the war actually starts. This turn was actually remarkably fast, especially for a turn divisible by 3. Okay, so entering the new turn, I got to remember Germany is going to get an infantry replacement point. And we have good weather. Counted up my airfields, I still have 2 air points per because I'm a little over. Brits moved, this actually happened a little later, but the Brits moved their port over to Syracuse. This turn they don't have a lot of points, but I was able to slightly change the configuration of the army boundary. And I've shifted it so that it runs like this. That gives me a little bit of opportunity to move around up here and try to exert my force against the Axis forces. You know, they have kind of like a wedge of a line there that I'd like to get some effort onto, and I can't do that if I can't move through that terrain. And I actually probably should have made it out to the road here, except that I think I want to send some U.S. forces up that road, and therefore I can't do that. So we'll have to move through the rougher terrain here. Cutting into the U.S. territory, they're going to be able to come out now, so they have a little bit more, they have more to do. So I don't necessarily have to make the chase for Messina, although that ends the game when you do. I think there are good reasons to try to wipe stuff out. I'm not absolutely certain. And we get a couple of Canadian armored units coming in that will help me out a little bit there. I'm in a port here, so I could conceivably do an end run, except I only have regimental units there. And my end runs are only of the tiny kind, and you kind of have to set them up ahead of time, what that means. If I had had any big ones, though, it would have been incredibly valuable, because then I could get more of my big units engaged on this. As it is, to get the divisional integrity bonus, I pretty much just have to move into there. It's often the case in these games, I'm finding it hard to get a grip on the enemy that I can actually land a blow. So I'm only making a few attacks down here. Up here against this Italian unit again, see if it pushes me back again. It's not a great attack. And then up here the Canadians are attacking that, and we don't know what we're facing, but it's probably the fucking Fallshimmers again. I don't know, they may be down here. I only have 2 air points, so we'll see where I get our odds. A lot of this is trying to get into position so we can bring a good deal of force in. And next turn we should have more support points. This turn we only have 4 to launch the attacks by the Brits. The US has tons, but I'm facing big enough forces that I'm just like, I gotta whittle away at these pieces. Now, in both Patton's Third Army and in Operation Grenade, you're in a position where, ooh, you really kind of need to make headway quickly, and everything in the line is hard to attack. And making lots of attacks seems like the only way forward. And then when you find weaknesses, then you start to exploit them, kind of like I'm trying to do here in terms of positional advantages or whatever. But once you have those advantages, it seems very wasteful to throw away your troops. In this game, because victory points are heavily reliant on the losses, yeah, that doesn't look good for the Axis somehow. You want to make sure not to be making, to be put in a position where you have to make lots of bad attacks or something like that. You want to try to target your attacks and make them as good as possible. And honestly, I'm not at all certain about any of these attacks. They all look like fairly strong positions, but I want to get some blows in. Now, 2 of the attacks were okay. This is just an iffy attack. I should not have made it. I got beat up last time and knew that I was going to be brawling on a low odds table, but I don't know how to get a grip there. These guys are going to come around and try to beat up on the Goering division, but I'm afraid of it, I don't know what it looks like. It's not that big. And it may be hurt. So here we caused a step loss, but the Italians held their position. And over here, the Italians actually bounced me back on an unlucky roll. So that's going to put it over to the Axis side and give a little break to recuperate in between player turns. I have the German replacement point, and I'm going to actually take that because this unit's only worth 4 strength points. It's probably not going to get weaker. I think this gets discarded, and it was a morale 2 unit, so I'm going to put a morale 1 marker under it, and that replaces its strength marker until it has to draw a chit. And at that point, it'll have its new strength. And now I guess we move some Axis forces around. I think I forgot to shift that down. You have to spend a support point whenever they're building, I think. Jesus, maybe it's only the Italians who do. Time to go look up a roll. The Italians don't get any replacement points, so yeah, you always have to spend a support point. Shifting of the line, I guess the only really major thing is I pulled the Goering division back and some of these forces into play to try to cover. There's something of a gap developing there. I don't want to deal with letting the Allies through. I don't have to attack here because I'm in a town. That was something else. Oh, yeah. I noticed I had this mechanized unit in an illegal location. It could have been swapped with the infantry, but the infantry has some armor with it. Because this was in a level 4 hex. I think that's prohibited, yeah, for the mechs. If they're not on a road. And that's it for tonight. I haven't done a lot of gaming today, but I wanted to make sure I got a turn in just to kind of so I don't forget much of the game. I felt already pretty blurry today trying to play it, but Saturdays are tough on me. And tomorrow, though, also there's a good chance I'm going to be out for most of the day, so I probably won't get more than a turn or so in. All right, so another day, and well, actually these are 2-day turns, but good weather again. Lots of support points for the Brits, a few more for the U.S. Might be important. We got replacement points, and a lot of them. I'm going to have to start writing these suckers down. 9 infantry and 2 armor for the U.S., British 2 armor, Canadians 2 infantry. It's a little painful, not just the writing them down. I guess I could, use little markers of dead units or something, but I don't have a lot of those available. Or make counters for them. But I'm really not sure I want to improve I want to boost my units. It gives them more steps, but again, if you got a good chit under it, reducing morale to draw another chit is really risky. I'm only allowed to do 1 per nationality, even though I have all these points available. This is probably my points for the game, basically. So I improved one of these armored units. This infantry probably needs to get increased too. For the Canadians, I haven't taken any losses on their big infantry units. I improved actually a smaller, these come with no cost, British armored unit. The problem with the small units is, I mean, they're steps, so you can take them as step losses or whatnot. But if you have divisional integrity in place, you may not want to, you may not be able to use smaller units. So you have to have your 3 units in the hex all be the divisional infantry. I don't know how much giving a step in that case necessarily matters, but it gives you a little bit more damage capacity for the whole unit. But that's a big part of it. So that's all we got there. I'm writing them down like this. I forgot to write down those U.S. infantry, or I wrote them down, but they're not very visible. My pencil sucks. Okay, and now to the rest of the turn. And the U.S. is going to continue trying to slog its way up this road. If I've got an attack, that's the one I got. The other option would be to try to make an attack here, but give up that ground. I would rather keep trying to press forward a little bit, but, you know, that's obviously where they intended for me to attack, so I don't know. Slamming into this again. This time we don't have divisional integrity, so we threw some armor and stuff in. See what we can do there. And the U.S. really wasn't able to find another foothold. Still maneuvering, what is it, the 45th Division into place where maybe it can gather and get a hit on something, but it looks pretty ugly right now. But the Brits, they're kind of going all out. They're smacking 1, 2, 3 different hexes, going after this one again. And we'll see how it all turns out. We've got to kind of break something somewhere. The U.S. attacks turned out pretty well, advancing here, pushing against here. For the Brits, though, their attacks along this line, the 2nd Fallschirm, or was it 4th Fallschirm, or whatever, pushed them back at heavy losses, and then there were also losses on a pushback here, so the main line that we wanted to advance on didn't work, but the Canadians managed to punch their way through this time. They had sort of a better setup in terms of where they got their units. There's some opportunity for the Germans to set up something horrible, but they'd have to attack then. So I think they're going to be falling back yet again. Anything special this turn? We're getting the, looks like 20th Panzer Grenadiers, I think, coming in. Anyways, this reminds me kind of the Tunisia type situation. You know, the Axis has the opportunity to throw a bunch of troops in to delay the U.S. advance, or the Allied advance, that they're going to have to pull back out. In this case, this is something that I get automatically, but where, if I wanted to take my optional reinforcements in, like I did before, I pay 15 points, well, 5 per, for units that, if I end up losing them, I pay another 5, you know. And those couple little terrain advances have caused some significant withdrawals. The line over here in the west had to fall back significantly. It was just, you know, this became an untenable position in terms of units being able to hit it from too many directions. So we're trying to form another one of those lines where it's hard to get a grip on it, right? And we're kind of trying to channel the U.S. activity in this direction because, well, they're not getting to Messina that way easily. And historically, that's sort of what happened, is Palermo became, you know, their goal. And this terrain's ugly to fight through, so the coastal road is the easiest path. Over here, the Livonian division had to pull back. I don't know what it's actually called. Had to pull back. And, you know, we've got a little bit of a bulge here, so now that's probably where the threat's going to be. Although there's not a real unit here. The 9th Division is trying to build up there, but it hasn't all come in yet. So I'm a little leery of launching attacks against what look like decent German units. Nothing exciting happened here. The U.S. is preparing an attack. I still feel like this line is good enough. But where the Canadians were, we had to react and create a bit of a bulge. And we're still in here. I don't know if there's some opportunity for the Brits to sort of... So there's two options. Either they can attack directly up here and kind of try to pocket these guys, or there might be an opportunity to sort of start cracking this defense and force it back. Either of which would be useful. And this, I think, ends up being a medium port or whatever. I'm not sure what the distinction between... There's medium... So there's major ports, which are these guys. Minor ports, but I thought there were also medium ports. Oh, no. It's that I don't have a minor port for the Brits. There's beach, minor port, major port. Okay. And right now I've still got one running off of beach, which I would like to get another port if I could. And there aren't a lot of ports on this coast, so that's really what's delaying the Brits. Okay, weather's good. Mussolini did not fall. Replacement points, the U.S. used another one of their infantry replacements. I don't remember where, but one of their damaged forces. For the UK, the Brits and the Canadians, I could not find a place where I wanted to spend a point. The Brits have no infantry points whatsoever, and the Canadians, I haven't been taking infantry damage on. Yeah. Not realizing where my replacements were. They also have less replacements in general. They have a fairly potent force that's doing pretty well, although it's getting a little tired. Anyway, I'm launching my major attack on this side, trying to either create a pocket or else, force the Axis to withdraw from the line that they're on right now. One thing that can do is it's actually gained me, at least temporarily, 4 airfields there. So let me pump that up. The Italians had to withdraw from there. Now if I can push through there, and I've got one of these airfields too that I didn't move in and take the other one, but so I'm gonna have trouble keeping my count of airfields correct. I don't think I've gained anything in tactical points. For the U.S., launching an attack against the Goering Division here. A little side attack here. That's the 1st Division making that attack there. And then here I switched the axis of my attack to pump up this road because, again, I had a better nibble there. I was able to bring more forces, although honestly I was able to bring quite a bit. I could have brought a lot in to bear here instead, but I need this division to kind of protect against things here. You can see the line's very weak there. If the Axis wants to try a counterattack, that's where they're likely to do it, I guess. But I don't know how much value there is. They'd probably end up losing all their units. Not in the first attack necessarily, but in the counterattack that wipes them out. And they really can't afford that kind of adventurism, I think. But it does mean that I can push the Italians back up to here because the Allies no longer have the advantageous line that they had before. Of course, if this is breaking, I'm not going to want to go down in there. But if the U.S. gets pushed back here, then there's an opportunity for Axis forces to move forward, I think. We'll see. All depends on how that line kind of falls to, how that attack falls together. I got 2 air attacks, is that it? It should be 3 now. I think. Nope, just 2. Yeah, my airfields went up, but they weren't up before. And I got the extra support points, not terribly helpful. I've got more than I need. And the Allies are successfully pushing across everywhere. Here, we forced them a little forward. Over here, we pushed them. Here, we shoved them a little bit. Over here's the big place, though. The Brits managed to break through here. And we're entirely successful. Destroying some units, pushing some other units around, and it looks like the Axis line down here has collapsed now. There's room to try to get out and get down to what? A Cantania line. this is in a zone, I've got to get out of there. I don't want to be attacking. You're going to be seeing a lot of places where I'm going to be falling back because I don't want to attack, or I'm going to be falling back because other places I've had to fall back and I got to get things out. Like I got to get this armored unit out. How do I get that out of there? Good Lord. Well, it can get to here and then down to here, and that's about as far as, well, no, it's fast enough. It can probably get somewhere else. But, you know, get to there and get on a road again. There is one problem with this game, which is you can end up in places that you kind of can't get out of, or that are very hard to get out of. Just because you're able to advance or retreat into spaces that you're not really easily able to move away from after you've gotten stuck in them. I may be misreading some things in it. But yeah. The Germans got an armored point, but I didn't spend it. I don't know if I had a good place for it. And I also would have had to look up probably to see if it was in a zone of control. Not really sure. I had this unit's fine. I really actually don't know if I have a German armored unit that's in trouble. I have some Panzer Grenadiers that were in the line though, and they might have been hurt. However, they look like they're all just regular infantry units. I don't see any mechs. For the most part, I've fallen back everywhere. These guys staying, they fell back a little bit to a town. There's a little bit of a gap here, and I'm trying to pull one of the coastal units down to try to cover it. If Mussolini goes, there's a serious problem, and that's something, you know, I got to keep an eye on. Turn 12, if we've gained a lot of tactical points or something, there's an issue there. Falling back here, this line is still pretty solid in terms of where it's sitting. And here we were able to withdraw. There's one more airfield ready to be captured there. I think I've got the count on all the others correct, but I'm not exactly positive. And that's one of the painful things in the game, is having to keep track of these values. Probably in a couple of turns I'll have to do a recount. I'm going to jump right ahead to the Allied turn. I don't usually do this, but I'm in the mood for another turn. 7 is a little bit of bad weather. I know that doesn't affect column shifts. I don't know what it might affect. I know it affects well, it affects air power, and I believe it affects things like airdrops and stuff like that, which I don't really want to deal with, and obviously landings, but I don't see much room for an end run right now. I'm not set up for it. I'd have to have troops in this port, or maybe Syracuse, and be able to try to get around. Not Syracuse, there are no British end runs. In this game, air points are only reduced if there's rain, and not by a lot. Some of the other stuff is affected, though, that I mentioned. So, let's see. U.S. decided to shift their axis back this way, heading up the coastal road. It's just easier than slogging through this shit, and that's where the opportunity is now. Now that I cleared this space, yeah, this is kind of exposed. And I knew that was the case. You know, it was a matter of, hey, did I want to fall back? Well, then the coastal road would be completely open for quite a ways, and that wouldn't be too good either. And this might still be exposed, you know. I really don't have anything on this flank. I unfortunately had a lot of forces here and not a lot of replacements coming down the line there. I was like, oh, I've got a couple of units that can protect it. Well, those couple of units got bashed away, and now there's just one left. Elsewhere, though, the U.S. largely, completely staying out of conflict. They've got kind of a weak line. Next turn, oh no, 2 turns from now, they get some the rest of the 9th Division coming in, and I don't know where that's kicking around. I think that's over here, so I shifted my port to over there to support that advance. I'd like to get that clear, but, you know, and there is another one of these damn coastal regiments in the way, and I kind of need a reasonable sized force to clear that out of the way. That reasonable sized force might be this armored force, and then shift the infantry up to take on the more challenging task. That armored division is still able to get divisional integrity, which is a big deal. And I may need to get a replacement there. I did spend one of the U.S. replacements on whatever division this is up here. The 3rd Division is fighting over there. Yeah, the 9th's involved too, but... of course, if the 9th comes in, I've got some more covering space. This is all kind of weak. Weak enough that the Axis could pound it back? I don't know, because attacking is so tough in this terrain that am I willing to take a chance? I tend not to take chances on my defense. I tend not to be big on the mobile defense in terms of like doing counterattacks and stuff. Especially, I got unknown positions here, you know. If I know that something's weak, sure. With the Allies, I'm like, I'm on the offense. I've got to attack. I got to look for what might be a weak point and hit it. But when there's hidden strengths, etc., I'm very reticent to go slam into them. And the Brits continuing their attacks, moving up the coast here, and the Canadians hitting over here, but not making too much. I gained that extra airfield. I may be off by 1. I may have 1 too few. I'm not, because I don't know if I counted the airfield here as well, which I should have. 16 and 17 is actually a difference, so I probably should count airfields next turn. This turn, not a big deal. This turn was right enough no matter what. And I guess that's about it. Do some battles. Easy successes along the line. This was just a piece of garbage that maybe should have been left behind to make more traffic jam. I really couldn't get it out far enough. It was too slow. And it was just 2 strength points. But the Allies did attack it. Over here, the Canadians got their push forward, and that's beginning to weaken the appearance here of a connection. And I probably need to fall back and tighten this line up a little bit, just because I don't have that many troops. I don't think I want to bring more Germans in. I got another 15 points of Germans I could bring in as optionals, but that, you know, that's starting to cost me, and I'm beginning to think I am not going to hold Sicily, obviously, all the way to turn 20. We're about halfway through, and I'm a good ways up the coast. Things are looking weak. Those extra units, I mean, if I could hold Sicily, that would be pretty good, right? But I just don't know that it's possible. The volcano helps a lot, though. It is completely impassable to any military units. Of course, nothing happened here. Here we broke through, shoved them back, did a little damage, and you can see there's less and less there as we go further. But the biggie is that opened up this pathway, which is now putting into question everything back here. I kind of don't know, you know, I can't keep throwing troops down the coastal road. I can defend here abouts, but I probably can't defend all the pathways up to Palermo. And you know, if I start being able to ship troops into Palermo, that makes anything that I commit down here really kind of questionable. So it might not even behoove the U.S. to throw forces down that way. All right, the Germans get another infantry. They've got an armor in the bank already. I'll try to see if there's anything they want to upgrade. I think there are infantry units they want to reinforce. Just trying to pull the line back now. In places like here and here, I got locations that give me some, I don't have to counterattack, so I can sit in those towns or whatever, and then tightening the line up a little bit. I swung one of them units around the back here to help reinforce. I'm a little worried the Canadians are going to take this sucker out. I think that's a weak spot, but what can I do? Because I got weak spots all over here. And then I'm having to even fall back over here to kind of refuse the flank, as it were, over there. That's going to move us over to here. And what does that big I mean? That means I got an Italian reinforcement. Oh, yay. Hey, you know, I need every troop I can get at this point. Casualties, obviously, the Axis is just getting, you know, a huge amount. But the Allies have to get a lot of points in this game. Everything they kill counts, everything, you know, and how quickly they get to Messina counts. So we're trying to get to Messina as fast as we can, but you know, putting a delay on them. There's no question of that. It just doesn't look like I'm going to be able to hold it. I don't think these extra troops are going to allow me to do any kind of awesome counterattacks. You know, whatever opportunities I have here, I just don't want to chance them. I feel like I can play the delaying game, and that's probably the best I can do. That's just how I feel about defense in general. Like I said, I'm not a fan of attacking. You know, so like when I'm given defensive goals, I tend to be not static, but also not, yeah, except where it's applicable, like in World War I. But even there, it's not really static. You still have to shift troops around and everything. But also not really in favor of big counterattacks to try to do something. I mean, if an opportunity really showed itself, but the problem again is hidden counters, you know? I mean, I can see there's an opportunity down here, but I can't risk my line down there, and that's far enough away. It would be hard to get a good attack on any of them anyway, you know. And it's not like I can just buzz through them, even though they don't have zones. They still have to attack them if I'm next to them. All right, as July's winding down to an end, what is it? 3rd Division continuing to push up along the coastal route, or shifting back to the coastal route. Remember, they pushed up here. They threw a single regiment up in this direction. I'm hoping to get that 9th Division moving on one of these routes on its own. The question was whether or not the armored could pursue things here. On either of these paths, it couldn't. So then it just came down to, well, what did I want to do? Sending all of these up after this one unit, while it might serve a better purpose in terms of flanking the Axis position over here, it felt like I was leaving things just too weak on the coastal path if I did that. So I wanted to push forward there. And I think I think the decision actually came down to I could not actually get the attack I wanted off on here. And likewise, the bad terrain here is making the armor or the mechanized units have a hard time dealing with the hills. So I don't want to push the attack there. Over here, the 45th Division, I think, is launching a couple of attacks against the Italian Livonia, I think. I don't know what it's actually called. The line is stretched pretty thin everywhere else. At some point or another, the Axis may just launch that counterattack. Of course, the problem always is that concept of how much am I weakening the Axis line to maybe gain some kind of minor advantage in terms of killing a couple of units, because I'm not going to be able to change the overall course of the battle with that little attack. It's not like I'm going to be pocketing a large force or something like that. It's not like Hitler's war where you have that kind of thing. And we see the Canadians continuing their push, and the Brits also attacking in a number of different locations. We have a lot of support points right now. Shit. Forgot to check to see if I wanted to spend any of those support points again. The U.S. has currently 8 support points left. There are not many more turns left. So I don't know. I'll see if there's a unit that I needed to increase. Pretty good turn for the Allies. First of all, we blew open the coast road, and now we've got this artillery surrounder. Artillery is always potent in the game. I kind of just screwed that artillery over. It's going to get shot up here, and this thing, it could launch an attack here, or it could try to block a location. locations, but I don't see a way of saving that artillery. Coming across here, the attacks on the Liv division were successful. We pushed forward. The Canadians got a major breakthrough, and in conjunction with, I think this was the 51st or whatever, they've pushed this unit up into a place that's going to be kind of hard to get out of. It's going to have to slip around that way. And the Axis line looks like it's going to have to fall back much, much further than it has been in the past. Over here, though, the Fallschirmer decided, they lost the battle, but they decided to take losses on units and try to keep some blockage here, because we got to prevent that route. You know, if this opens up, there are real problems. So granted, this line is kind of sturdy temporarily when it's first assaulted, but once it starts showing cracks, it's going to fall apart. And yeah, the 1 hex row area, that's fine, but this is a 5-point city for tactical points. That could cause the Mussolini fall, so holding it seemed kind of important, although we did lose at least one important location. There was like a 3-point location somewhere up here or something. So we've gotten up to the 16 chart. Now, of course, if we had had the other, we'd be up to there. But, you know, I mean, we're getting to the point where we're starting to cause the Mussolini fall options to become possible, and that gets rolled next turn. All right, time to figure out what the Axis is going to do about this. They just got to pull back, I guess. Okay, try as I might, I could not close up the gap that the Canadians opened up here. I'm trying to pull back as hard as I can in this general area, but the units are too slow. We're too close to the enemy. It's painful. New unit is going in that general salient, and it may allow us to, you know, tighten up our position to some extent. Elsewhere, I'm keeping the line the same. This may be a mistake. Maybe I should be focusing on pulling back. This artillery at least should, because artillery has a hard time getting out of the way, and that's all it can go, actually. Holding line here, I lost the artillery unit that I had there. That's actually a big loss. I only have a couple artillery in the game. I should be trying to pull them off the map, probably help. It would help the withdrawal process if we get to that point in the game. And, you know, I mean, we are actually keeping the Allies from Messina so far. That's going to put us to the 1st or 2nd of August. Well, 1st of August. And I think this video is ready to go up. At some point I have to recount the airfields, don't I? I'm at 17 supposedly. Yeah, that's the bottom end of the spectrum, but my numbers are beginning to get a little fuzzy. I'm pretty sure it's at least 17, but I may have taken another one here. So I probably want to recount that. I'm fairly confident about the tactical points right now, though.